Good evening, fellow targeted individual. In an era of decentralized surveillance and ideological warfare, a new breed of covert actors has emerged, not in foreign war zones, but in our neighborhoods, parks, and public spaces. These are not traditional spies or soldiers. They are contracted provocateurs, often disguised as civilians, veterans, or diversity operatives, trained to manipulate, intimidate, and destabilize targets through psychological warfare and symbolic interference. So, I want to talk about domestic black ops targeting operations and how it works, who gets deployed, and why it poses a growing threat to public safety and civic trust. The autonomy of domestic black ops targeting typically utilizes actors that don't hide in underground bunkers so much. These types of people will show up in grocery store lines, doctors' office lobbies, nature trails and state parks, airports, and even gas stations for some targets. These are ritual zones, places where civilians seek peace when they go to their doctor's office. When people are just shopping, they're trying just to do their own thing. They're not bothering nobody. They're trying to heal. They're trying to eat healthy. So their presence there is strategic. They're utilizing behavioral scripts. Common tactics may include tailgating your vehicle. Let's say you're documenting every day 10 cars riding your bumper, maybe passing by your house and honking horns or trying to run you off the road. Those things are bizarre. They also may do different things to provoke shame. They may make their presence known across multiple state lines. They may utilize emotional baiting through inverted hospitality. Now, these behaviors are subtle, deniable, and deeply psychological, and they've been utilizing diversity as camouflage for their acts. Many of these actors are elderly veterans, which are symbolic to authority, young women with clandestine training, which is a disarming presence, individuals selected for racial or cultural optics, maybe utilized that are like African American or minorities to mask surveillance as inclusion. This weaponized representation is not authentic diversity. Contractor networks and outsourcing is real, and these operatives are often linked to military intelligence or private firms. They may utilize RVs, rental cars, and have access to fleets of vehicles. And these perpetrators sometimes are operating under DEI partnerships or civic outreach fronts. They may be paid to provoke, not protect. Why this threat matters and why it needs to be exposed? Well, first of all, it poses a substantial public safety matter, I feel, because in a few states, I've had people in motorcycles riding the tail, like riding my bumper when the fast lane is open. So some of these people come across as being suicidal because if I'm reaching a red light and if I stop and you won't stop, then it can cause somebody to get injured. Fortunately, the Holy Spirit has been with me and nobody has got harmed. But one time I had to run a red light in 2015 because the guy wouldn't stop. And he rode my tail for over 20 miles until I pulled into a police department. So when harassment is masked as diversity or kindness, communities lose faith in institutions, so they lose civic trust. And these actors pollute sacred spaces and test moral clarity through ritualized interference. When harassment is masked as diversity outreach, veteran presence, or DEI partnerships, officers may fear being labeled as discriminatory or insensitive. Investigating actors tied to military contractors, federal agencies, or ideological groups can trigger internal warnings or career risk. Some officers may sense the pattern but know it's above their clearance or jurisdiction, so they don't help you. Others may be instructed not to engage if the actors are linked to federal or private intelligence networks. So, this is really what you're up against. You're not just facing individuals, you're facing a system that protects interference through diversity optics and plausible deniability. That makes it hard for police to act even if they want to. Concealing proof preserves the illusion of public safety and institutional integrity. And my documentation threatens that illusion, so they bury it. They build political capital sometimes through different groups. Let me give you an example. When I lived in Austin, Texas, I found out that there was pension manipulation going on, favoritism, and oversight was very weak. So you had pension and retirement incentives through like Citizens Corps programs. Some municipalities would help coordinate the volunteer programs and give extra service credits towards retirement, bonuses for program leadership, political favors, which translates into promotion or a pension negotiation leverage. You may notice this with the volunteers and police service. So this can influence retirement packages and negotiations or post-retirement consulting gigs. So there's many different back doors. And every single city, fellow TIs, there are different groups which are just fighting for contracts. So when I lived in Texas, I dealt with a group called Fire Corps. And I'm not saying that fire departments are bad. There are heroes. But there are some which are corrupted, and it's due to interagency cooperation, expanded pension eligibility, ties to public safety systems, access to federal and state grants tied to community resilience, extra side money which could be gained, makes it where they don't want to help in many cases. So what we have occurring within our nation right now are false flag operations, which are clandestine. And these acts may appear as one thing, like diversity, outreach, veteran support, civic engagement, but they're serving a different agenda, which is based on surveillance and ideological baiting through slander and lies. In domestic settings, this can look like staged harassment by actors posing as civilians, scripted emotional traps designed to provoke collapse or retaliation, or contractor deployment under DEI or outreach optics. And sometimes they may utilize faith-based outreach. It often includes racial, cultural, or gender diversity, which can mask surveillance as inclusion. It aligns with DEI camouflage tactics, making interference look like compassion. And they utilize plausible deniability. If exposed, actors can claim, "We're just praying, we're here to help. You must be mistaken. We're a faith group." And I'm a Christian too, fellow TIs, but there are some groups that abuse these programs, and they're really not Christians. They're just trying to get a contract. Perps may operate through multi-state presence, mission trips, outreach tours, or disaster relief fronts. So there's a lot of contractor overlap. They may operate through faith-based NGOs with military and intelligence ties. If this pattern of behavior was exposed, where it shows multi-state harassment, um, where it shows it shows stuff that the CIA utilizing like a behavioral threat matrix, or the NSA utilizing their own systems, they would see that there are many elevated cases when it comes as far as behavioral provocation index, or if they were to look at like symbolic actor density, multi-state saturation as apparent. Then we have civic disruption probability is high. Then we have false flag. I think it's called FM is confirmed. And then there are cases all across the United States where we see active shooter precursor patterns. They are present in cases all across the United States, and we need to say no to violence. I have been noticing on Facebook and on different groups where there are people which have worked for the NSA, the United States Army, which are presenting those patterns. So I go on groups encouraging people to pray, ask for help, look at other countries. We need to say no to violence. So these things that I was just talking about a moment ago, they're not just acronyms. They represent real world indicators used by intelligence agencies and contractors to assess risk. And if the public knew that such tactics linked to active shooter precursors, emotional baiting, and ideological inversion were being conducted openly under the guises of outreach or diversity, the societal backlash would be massive. The civic danger is very real, fellow TIs. They'll use fake kindness rituals and try to befriend you. The police will conceal this, and this creates a vacuum of distrust. This isn't just unethical, it's very dangerous, and it's happening in plain sight. A call to nonviolence should be promoted by targeted individuals. Let this be clear, nonviolence is not weakness. It's strategic clarity. We do not retaliate, we document, we endure, we teach. The goal is not to revenge, it's legacy protection. The shield is not a weapon, it's truth, time-stamped. If the CIA flagged this as a precursor to collapse, they call it a threat. I call it a testimony. I resist not with rage, but with clarity. I choose nonviolence because legacy is louder than fear. I'm not just exposing evil, I'm teaching others how to survive it without becoming it, by speaking out and leaving paper trails, and by telling targets in social circles, if all else fails, seek political asylum. Pray, worship the Lord, expose what you're going through, but remain nonviolent, because we are exposing a substantial threat to our homeland, to our national security, and to our public safety. That is why I named this video The Hidden Domestic Threat, DEI and Black Ops Targeting, because that is what is occurring. So I'm going to drink some water here. I got cotton mouth. I didn't expect to speak for 14 minutes. I know I made some mistakes. Anyways, God bless. Peace.